This is just more a personal story, I guess, about going to Panera Bread and accidentally getting cut in line. And I always go off it, off of one little thing, and then I think just ridiculous global thoughts about everybody. But so basically, the story is I'm in Panera. I forget. I don't think I don't think my girlfriend was with me, but I don't really remember. But I'm in Panera, and I'm standing back. I think my girlfriend might have been there. That's not really relevant though. I'm standing. I'm waiting in line. I'm standing back. Probably, there you walk in. There's like a coffee area kind of thing. You keep going, and then there's the counters. So, I'm standing back maybe 7, 8 feet, probably, like a pretty like decent distance. I'm not humping these people in front of me, and you could argue like, yeah, I'm standing pretty far back. Maybe somebody didn't see me, right? So this guy comes up from the right, though, the right side, from kind of like the eating area, and he just like walks right up to the counter, and I'm just like, I'm standing there, and then naturally, it's like my ego is just like destroyed, maybe because I'm an egocentric person or whatever. So I immediately, and I know it's not good, but I immediately got really frustrated. I immediately got really like angry. I didn't like. I'm not screaming at anybody in Panera Bread, but like it's just like I'm basically turning red. It's like this like adrenaline just immediately starts going, and I feel like this is. It sounds ridiculous, but this is like kind of an issue that I feel like a lot of guys kind of face when it's like sort of an ego thing, and you have to kind of like stand your ground and stuff, or you kind of feel like shit, like if you don't stand up for yourself, even in like an innocent situation like this guy probably didn't even, realistically probably didn't even know. But I'm going to make a further point down the line in the video how, whether or not he knew or not, I feel like he was being kind of a jerk, because and I'll explain that. So he goes up, starts ordering. I'm like real frustrated. So I eventually walk up after composing myself after few seconds, you know what I mean? Because it was like a burst of adrenaline almost. And I'm like, oh, excuse me, sir. I'm like, yeah, you just cut me in line. And he's just like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you or something. It's just like, oh, that's okay. And like I was visibly like pissed off. They're like, oh, that's fine. And then the girl next to me is like, oh, I can take you anyway. I'm like, okay, cool. So I was ordering basically the same time anyway. But I was so aggravated. I was even like, it took me a second to even start ordering it, and like I wanted the guy to hear even. And I was just like, man, I hate when people cut me in line, you know. So I don't know. Maybe that's petty. Maybe I'm a petty person, but I would argue that. See, that's like an immature thing for me to do, right? But whether or not you saw somebody, and yeah, I was standing a little further back, like kind of more by the coffee area or whatever, but whether or not I was standing further back, I would argue that there's a certain, like when you're functioning in like society, when you're doing something, when you go into a business, when you're on the road in your car or whatever, there's a certain way of going about something when you go to Panera Bread, and it's always, you walk in the door, or you order online, or you walk in the door and you go up to the counter and you order, or you order online, you walk in the door, and you're always coming from like one direction, that left side, and you're cycling through. And then you get your food and then you sit down, or you get your food and then you get in your car and leave. And like my problem with the situation, after reflecting on it and even talking to my therapist about it and stuff, my problem with it is, see, certain people though, if you're gonna go the way that the 95% of people don't go, like from the left to the counter to the right, from the left to the right. See, anybody in the normal Panera flow would have saw me standing there and realized like, yeah, this guy's waiting in line. See, what my point is, if you're gonna go the opposite direction, I feel like you're obligated now to take the extra 2 seconds to be courteous and like look left and right real quick. Like, oh, I'm coming from the right side from the sitting area. Like, no one ever does that. You know, it's like 2% of people who like do this weird opposite order thing, like that breaks the flow of the store, how it usually works. And yeah, and if you don't know, then take a second and just be like courteous of your surroundings. That's the thing. So I have this mentality, and I know it's probably not healthy, but I have a mentality where it's like, even if somebody doesn't do something on purpose, it's on purpose. And even like thinking back and even talking to people about it, it's like, yeah, like the dude probably had no ill intentions at all, you know? But at the end of the day, I can't help but feel like it is sort of like an asshole move, though, to not just take a second to like view your surroundings, you know? So there's that. And I don't know. It's the same thing with I don't know. Well, that's another subject entirely. But you know, I went to college late, and I recently graduated, and even just taking it's just ridiculous. And this is the awareness of people in general, like when they're going to and from whatever A to B in their day. Sometimes it just seems so like I can't help but feel like the average person is just very like kind of dumb and selfish, because it's just I always think too globally with like very small examples. But just about every time I take one of these lefts, like out of the college area, and on one of these streets there's like a double left turning lane. Just about every time I take that left, the person in the rightmost left turning lane out of two, they're always like veering over into the left turning lane, and they're kind of just floating from like the left to the right turning lane. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've literally like slowed down, like this car is like literally gonna hit me, you know what I mean? And it's like it's such an easy concept. Like it's a concept that I feel like people learn when they're young, of just like, you know, coloring in the lines. Like, what else is driving a car, really? I mean, yeah, it's a very heavy piece of machinery. It's a very serious thing. But the concept of like in the lines is something like a third grader learns. And that's why I mean, I'm literally becoming such an old man when it comes to like driving around, or you know, talking to people or interacting with people. And I'm so grumpy. I'm so frustrated with people in general that like, yeah, I can't drive my car without like getting like road rage, you know what I mean? I'm not screaming out my window or anything, but you know, like I'll beep if somebody goes over the line. Like I like make it a point, like I want you to fucking know, you know? Like I want you to know you're driving like shit. Like I could theoretically have some kids in the back. I mean, I don't have any kids, but like I mean, you could have killed my family, you know? So I don't know, I just think it's really rude and very, very loose subject matter. I just kind of got onto a new thing, but I just feel like, you know, going through your day, just, you know, people really just, sometimes they just strike me as really like just kind of inconsiderate. Like they don't really think about anyone else. That's another thing with going to college late and, you know, going to the college bar scene and stuff. Like, there's definitely nights where I drink too much, for sure. I mean, I view the bars like a playground, honestly, and that's a whole subject entirely. You know, the people at the bars, obviously this isn't a playground, right? But at the same time, you know, you go there and you're spending like the markup of what, 500, what is it, 500% or 1,000% or whatever. You know, you're buying a beer for like $6. You know, you're dropping 20, 30, 40, 50, $60 in a night. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm paying for the playground in a sense, you know. And what really got me though, this could be a whole nother video just about like tipping and stuff. But no, I noticed that too. Just there's a lot of where every like there's definitely good bartenders, and there's definitely like nice people for sure, and like you don't like leave a fat tip, they're not gonna like scorn you. But I've noticed that too, and I think it's the mentality in like the college scene where there's a lot of these bartenders and like bar folk really, and you don't tip them and they give you this dirty look, and it's like I feel like they assume that you're just like the spoiled college kid going to college, and it's like I couldn't afford college. I went to college late at whatever 25 years old, and I finally graduated in my late 20s, and I mean I'm broke. I saved up my money, and I had all the help I could get really, and college gets a little less expensive when you get older. Maybe I mean that's the same thing with like car insurance and stuff. I think when you get older, you're just more of a responsible person or something. I don't know. Everything gets like a little cheaper for you, but yeah, the point is, I mean, I'm at these bars and I'm pretty broke, but like, what does that mean? I'm not allowed to like have a drink, But it's like, yeah, I can't tip a fat tip on every beer you open for me. Like, sorry. And I just remember distinctly, this one time I was at the bar and it's like, I'm tipping. I think I'm tipping just about every drink. I usually tip like $1 a drink, but it was like I remember it was at the end of the night. Like maybe it came across rude or something like the way I said it, but I'm not sure. I wasn't intending to be rude at all. Where I was like, I was tipping the whole night. I just tipped my last drink too, like whatever it was, $1 or two. But it was like my last drink of the night. I had like no money for tips. I had like change in my pocket. And I'm like, hey, like sorry, I really don't have money for a tip. Like this is my last drink right now, and I'm like, I just like here's everything I have. And like I think I mean yeah, who wants change? But I think I gave them like 75 cents and like quarters or whatever, like for the tip or whatever it was. And it's not meant to be insulting. It's literally just saying like, hey, like I enjoyed your bar. I was drinking here all night. I spent like all the money in my wallet at your bar, and like what do I get other than a scorn from that? You know what I mean? Like, and that's the whole thing, because I have this outlook where something happens and I have this it's almost, I think it's a sign of like depression, or like the global outlook on where you kind of globalize everything that happens, and you think like somebody did this, therefore people are always like that. And I feel like it's like that global outlook of even the bartender though, of like, in that one instance I didn't tip well, therefore I didn't tip well the whole night, and I'm such a jerk, When in reality I was tipping the whole night, and like I even said like sorry, yeah, it's my last drink, like I really don't have much money. I was there for hours, I mean, I spent all my money at that bar. But it's like, no, I mean that's not good enough for some people. But I just feel like they think it's just a bunch of spoiled college kids, and they're like brats if they don't tip or whatever. And not everybody's made of money. It's like, lady, you're making more money than I am, at working as a bartender. Like I'm sure you make probably, I mean, you make probably 3-4 times as much as a minimum wage worker. That's the whole thing with people working at like McDonald's, or I've worked at a coffee shop before, and it's like, I mean, do you have to tip everybody everywhere you go that does a service, And I'm not trying to sound like an asshole. It's just, and it is the, I honestly think it's the fault of just the culture and the employers, how it's part of the culture now. Like people are used to getting tips for doing certain jobs, and then they like won't even get paid minimum wage, right? And yeah, the cycle continues. Now it's on me to pay, to pay for them, to pay their salary or whatever. And then in turn, it's up to the customer to pay the salary of the service workers, and they end up making 2 times as much as minimum wage workers anyway. Like where's the tip for like the McDonald's worker flipping a burger? You know what I mean? Like why is the line where you crack open a beer for somebody and you get a tip for it, but somebody making your pizza, like slaving away in a a hot, greasy, Pizza Hut kitchen, they're slaving way back there. I mean, what tips do they get? So it's one of those things. And yeah, I mean, it's just the tipping thing in general, I think, is out of control, and it's not always like an employee is going to get in like a verbal argument, but they give you dirty looks, and it's like, sorry, I remember going to Swenson's with my girlfriend, and she even called ahead. It was like, I think she called 5-10 minutes before we got there, placing a pretty simple order. It was like a couple cheeseburgers and like a side or 2 or whatever it was. It was like 4 things. We get there, I think it was 5 minutes before. We get there and we were waiting for like, I mean, the time it would take a whole order, if not longer, like the time it would take a whole order if they dropped it and remade it, it took probably 15 minutes or a little more than that. and they bring out the food, and it's like, yeah, we're not like, I mean, we give them money, we're very nice, so we give them the money, but they get like, you can tell they give you this look like, oh, like you, like there's no tip, and it's just like dude, the food it took like 20 minutes. Like why would I even tip on it, And not to mention, it's like, I know it's not the person, obviously I know it's not the person running the food over's fault. I mean, it's probably the kitchen's slow or whatever, or they mixed up an order, or like, you know. But still, it's like, I don't want to tip you if I had to wait 20 minutes, and it's just so expected now that like you get looks like if you don't tip somebody. I feel like it's, even if it's like completely inadequate service, there's always bare minimum. They always expect to tip it. At only certain places though. That's what's so weird about it. Like at certain places they completely expect it for like a pretty simple task. Like it'll be your job to do something. Like a bartender, for example. Like, do I think bartenders should get tips? Like, sure, but like I don't think people should expect real fat like tips where they're gonna be making like bank, like making a drink or whatever. And I feel like it should definitely be like an extra, like a nice extra, an addition, like a positive thing, like. Like, oh, I really like the conversation. I really like what, like how you guys are doing. All right, this is like kind of like my bar. I've been coming here a while. Like, hey, Fred, or whatever. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, you like tip people, But like, you go to a random bar or whatever, and it's like, I don't really like know this bar, or these people that well. This isn't really my local bar. Or like, I don't know about the service yet. I don't really know about any of it. Like, I don't know about the cleanliness. And it's like, why are you just automatically expected to $2-3 for like a drink? It's like the price of the drink in itself. I mean, the tip alone for a beer, sometimes you might as well go out and buy a case of beer. So I think that's a little ridiculous. So yeah, those are just two stories about tipping. And then there's that Panera story. I guess I got a little off track, but yeah, I don't know, it's just kind of like, everybody has that outlook, I guess. They just think, this one situation is like representative of like who you are as a person, like this one thing, It's hard not to do that. I'll probably make a video about that actually next. How it's real easy to kind of like generalize somebody based on one interaction, which I don't think is very healthy, And I would argue that's why I personally like the whole like vomitous like talking, because I feel like sometimes you get a clearer picture just kind of spewing out on something than if you were just to say one thing about something. So, I mean, if I walked into a room and I was like, man, I really like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I'm going to go have one. I mean, if somebody is that the only thing if that's the only thing they heard of me, I'm like that peanut butter and jelly sandwich guy now. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's not really that big of a thing in my life. But to them, that's the only thing they've ever like heard about me. So it kind of becomes the whole picture of me if I only say one thing. So that's the same thing like with like the bartenders, kind of like you don't tip one time and they expect it, and it's like now you're an asshole, and it's like. Like, yo, trust me, like I've been tipping the whole night. Don't worry about it, Like, Jesus, get off my back. Like, I didn't know I had to be a rich man to like have a drink. But yeah. Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of like it's kind of like somebody having a tattoo. I don't have anything wrong. I don't have anything against tattoos. I have a lot of buddies actually who have a lot of tattoos. About half my friends are like covered in tattoos. So yeah, I don't want to say anything bad about tattoos. Have them kick my ass next time I see them or whatever. But it's kind of like somebody getting one tattoo, where you get one tattoo and someone looks at it and it's kind of like you can't. I know it doesn't represent that person, but it's hard not to kind of over-represent them from that one tattoo. Like, it'll be like whatever, like they're telling their thing about their like tattoo. I remember even back, in high school, or like a little after high school, people would get tattoos, and it's like, all right, yeah, this is like an owl with like a monocle, and like that represents like my grandfather, and like da da da, and like, And if it's like, especially if it's their only tattoo, you're kind of like, dude, whoa, like you're really passionate about owls with monocles. Like that is like, you're Mr. Owl Monocle now, and like in my head, you know what I mean? And I'm exaggerating, obviously, but you know what I'm trying to say is like one interaction with somebody, like that becomes your whole world. For at least with that person, I mean, like your whole world with that person is just that one thing, and it's not good. But as people, I feel like it's really easy to think that way, and I don't know. I feel like I'm just kind of spinning out of control. I mean, this probably should have been two separate videos, but I just kind of went on and on. So I don't know. I hope somebody got something from it. I'm not sure. All right.